Kept smelling the antifreeze and got to doing some checking. Just in front of the upper radiator hose, which is the return hose for the radiator, where it connects to the tank, there is a seam that stayed wet right down through here. And when I squeezed the radiator hose, I noticed that I had a fluid leak out of a crack at the top of the radiator tank right next to the hose. After discovering that I've got a radiator that I need to replace, first order of business after finding the leak was to get the vehicle up on some blocks to get it a few inches off the ground so I can get underneath it, and we'll proceed. The big dustpan that's on the underside of the radiator is huge, and of course the little cheap plastic push pins that hold it in place aren't worth a darn, and after they get aged, like this old 98 model Honda, most of them break off. From the top looking down on the radiator, you'll see the drain plug. After you remove the splash pan, you can see it from underneath, but you can also see it from top side. Remove the radiator cap and turn the screw here, or the plug, counterclockwise, just a few turns, and let it drain, let your antifreeze drain. Remove the lid off the reservoir tank and lift the reservoir tank straight up and out. On the driver's side, there'll be an electrical connector that runs off the AC compressor and is plugged in to the fan units, and it mounts back in here on a little flange. You'll have to disconnect this to be able to remove the fan shroud with the fans. There'll be two hydraulic lines to disconnect, one here on the passenger side, one over here on the driver's side, and then there'll be a bracket with two 10mm head bolts that screw into the base, the bottom tank of the radiator. They need to come out, so this will be removable, and you'll have to disconnect these two lines here so you can drain the automatic transmission fluid out of that line, which is part of the tranny cooler that's built into the bottom of the transmission. The one fan I just set aside so I didn't have to disconnect any more wires, and then the other one I removed it and just set it aside on the ground. Replacement radiator from AutoZone, $109.99, and it's supposed to be a direct bolt-in. We'll see. We'll transfer all of our brackets and pieces off the old radiator, place them on the new, which came with a new cap, and we'll reinstall it. After looking over the old radiator, comparing it with the new, there's a couple little brackets that needed to be mounted, as well as the hydraulic lines for the transmission. And once those are put in place, just like on the original, you set the radiator back down in there on its cushion and in its position, and mount it back up with the two 10mm head bolts.